Selling more cars starts with reaching shoppers who are ready to take the next step. That's why dealers turn to AutoTrader, where leads deliver a 69% higher close rate. Visit dealdoers.com to learn more.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Friday, August 21st, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Nissan scraps plans to form its own industrial bank. Ford is going deeper into China using a Geely platform for its next European SUV. And Hyundai's South Korean union just called its first full strike in a decade, and AI is a big reason. Plus, one Michigan Chevy dealership is learning what mobile service actually looks like in the real world.
The modern day that we live in, I think it's very important to offer services at somebody's house because I think that's the way the world's going.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Nissan is scrapping plans to establish an industrial bank in Salt Lake City, and cost cuts are to blame. The proposed Nissan Bank US would have operated under the automaker's captive finance arm, giving it access to deposits and lower cost capital for commercial lending to retailers. But management wanted, quote, more long-term viability and health to the bottom line. That's according to a person familiar with the matter who spoke with our own Urvash Kakaria. Nissan confirmed it withdrew the application in a statement to Automotive News. Hyundai's South Korean union staged its first full strike in a decade Friday. About 40,000 workers are off the job over wage talks, retirement age, and AI job protections. Partial walkouts since late July have already disrupted production of more than 55,000 vehicles, worth nearly $1.7 billion. That's according to Yonhap News Agency. The tension runs deeper than wages. Hyundai plans to deploy humanoid robots at its Georgia plant by 2028. Union officials say AI threatens not just factory jobs, but research and engineering posts too. And Ford is going deeper into its partnership with China's Geely Auto. The Detroit automaker confirms it will use Geely's electrified GEA platform for a new multi-energy SUV built in Valencia, Spain. As part of the deal, Geely's Centurion Industries will pay Ford more than 220 million euros for a 34% stake in the Valencia plant. It's the latest example of what analysts are calling a reverse joint venture. Established global brands tapping Chinese companies for cheaper platforms and electrification know-how. The target launch is 2029. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. That Ford Geely story is part of a much bigger picture right now. Automakers rethinking how they partner on EV platforms and battery technology as demand has fallen well short of earlier expectations. Joining me now to dig deeper into one of the most significant examples of that shift is our own John Irwin, who covers General Motors for Automotive News. John, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, John, so GM is selling its stake in the Indiana battery plant, but keeping the Samsung SDI relationship alive to co-develop next-generation prismatic batteries. What's the logic there?
Yeah, I think GM is basically trying to balance having to scale back its EV plans in the here and now with still having a foot in the door for the future. GM, Mary Barra, Paul Jacobson, CFO, they've talked a lot recently over the past year or two as they've scaled back electrification plans, over $11 billion in EV write-downs. They've continued to make the point that they still see EVs as like the end game for GM and for the auto industry as a whole. It's just not going to happen as fast as they were saying just a few years ago when GM was talking about being an all-electric company by 2035. They're not talking like that anymore, obviously, but they do want to make sure that they still have a foot in the door with these suppliers, these battery makers, as they develop new technologies that, as new technologies develop, as breakthroughs happen, that they're going to be there. I think part of it, we've seen this with other automakers as well. They're trying to balance risk versus reward. Obviously, a lot of these companies were, just over capacitized. There's just too much. They had too many plants dedicated to EVs or battery production, more than they needed. Um, and I think in the future, they're looking at how can we balance that, make sure that we don't have as much risk maybe tied up in our capacity. But the flip side of that might be that they're going to be a little more reliant on suppliers for whether it's technological breakthroughs or whether it's just having the EV battery manufacturing capabilities moving forward than maybe they would have been had their plans earlier this decade panned out. So I think again they're just trying to find that perfect balance. Easier said than done, just considering no one really knows how the EV market's going to play out over the next several years, especially if regulations change over time or if new competitors come in, whether that's from China or breakthroughs from other competitors in the market already for GM. Obviously, a lot could change over the course of time, but I think they're just trying to be nimble, but while they're also scaling back their physical footprint right now.
Now, you write that GM is moving away from having one universal battery platform. What does that shift mean for how GM actually builds and prices EVs going forward?
Yeah, I think GM is, they've talked a lot about this lately where, they don't really see one battery chemistry as being, the one solution for any single vehicle or platform. They might, a cheaper battery, right now can get you a good amount of range, an LFP battery on, say, like a Chevy Bolt. And so that might be a good fit for that because it's a good fit in price. You want to keep that vehicle below a certain MSRP. Might be a good fit there, but other battery chemistries might be better fits for other vehicles. Like the small Chevy Bolt doesn't necessarily need the same technology that a big electric pickup would need. And so GM's really been looking into that. I think when they were looking at partnerships with different battery manufacturers, they're keeping that in mind. Which technologies do we think we'll need moving forward? I know GM has talked a lot about how they really like having a range of vehicles. They talk a lot about how they offer across the lineup, not just EVs, several models under $30,000, including, as of now, at least the Bolt. I think moving forward, they want to keep that. They don't necessarily want EVs to just be, more expensive vehicles. I was talking with one analyst, Paul Waddy at Auto Pacific, and he made a good point when talking about this, that EVs, when we talk about EV batteries, we always talked about range for the longest time, and that still matters, but range, isn't the be all end all anymore. A cheaper battery can get you a decent range now. It can get you a couple hundred miles, 250 miles, which for a smaller application might be all you need. Whereas for a pickup, you might need something else. So I think GM's really, as they're working through these battery partnerships, where do we want to build our own batteries? Who do we want to partner with on suppliers, to develop new technologies? They're keeping that in mind and trying to kind of place their bets accordingly as far as see their product plans going moving forward.
Perfect. Good stuff, John. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, a Michigan Chevy dealership launched a mobile service van in June. The first few weeks were slow. We'll talk about how much that turned around and why. That's next on Daily Drive.
What if your next lead already knew exactly what they wanted? With AutoTrader's AI-powered shopping experience, today's car buyers get help from the very first search. They can describe what they're looking for in everyday language, compare vehicles, ask questions, explore budget and payment options, and move through the buying journey with more confidence. And while shoppers are getting a smarter, more personalized experience, dealers get something even more valuable: stronger signals of real intent. AutoTrader helps shoppers do more of the early legwork before they ever contact your store, researching, narrowing their options, and getting closer to a decision. So when that shopper reaches out or walks onto your lot, your team is not starting from scratch. You're connecting with someone who has already engaged, already explored, and is much more ready to buy. That is the power of AutoTrader. Our AI shopping tools help match shoppers to the right inventory faster, keep them moving through the process, and turn online interest into real sales opportunities dealers can act on with confidence. Because for dealers, success is not just about generating more leads. It's about getting the right shoppers, ready to buy shoppers, closer to the close. AutoTrader helps do some of the first selling for you, so your team can spend less time chasing cold leads and more time doing what they do best: closing deals. That means more meaningful conversations, more efficient follow-up, and more opportunities to move inventory faster. See how AutoTrader helps turn search into sold at dealdoers.com. That's dealdoers.com. AutoTrader. Always be selling.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Mobile service is one of the fastest growing trends in the retail auto industry. But for the dealerships actually doing it, there's a real learning curve, figuring out staffing, routing, pricing, and how to build a customer base from scratch. Matt Kostrava is the service manager at Bowman Chevrolet in Clarkston, Michigan. He spoke with Automotive News senior retail editor Dan Shine on the lot.
Matt, thanks for having us out here at your Bowman Chevrolet in Clarkston.
Yeah.
So you did a soft launch of a mobile service van
Yes.
in June and starting to ramp up. How's it going so far?
It was slow to catch on, but I think with anything new that you're offering to customers, if they're not versed on it or they haven't experienced it, until they can experience it, then traction and things start to take off. And we were getting, 1 to maybe 2 appointments a week, and now we're averaging anywhere from 1 to 7 in just, a month time frame with that.
So the word of mouth is starting to
Word of mouth is
catch
starting
up.
to pick up, and even the customers that we have touched, and once they've experienced it, that's the only way that they're ever going to go for your routine maintenances and simple services versus coming to the dealership.
So let's go back in time.
Yeah.
Mobile service, obviously a new offering. A lot of dealerships are adopting it. What was the thought process like? So when someone came to you, you had the idea, the principal had the idea, we got to do a mobile service. What are the things that you start taking off? Okay, what do we need to do to make sure this is a fit for us?
Yeah, first things that went on is typically the owner, wants to make the decision if they want to get on board. When they're offered new services through the dealership, you got to start doing your research. It's not a small investment.
No.
And you've got to just look on, your ROI, your return on investment, for such a van. But we know that other companies are doing it. We've seen their numbers, and you can see it's profitable. And the fact of the matter is the modern day that we live in, I think it's very important to offer services at somebody's house because I think that's the way the world's going.
Yeah.
So
When you say a lot of doing research, are you talking to friends in the business that you know who are doing it? Are you just going online, in certain forums and LinkedIn or, on
well, we've been
Facebook
able
pages?
we've been able to both track some of the other dealerships, Chevy wise, because we have access and numbers being, affiliated with GM to see what other dealerships across the nation are doing for mobile service. And then looking, I know Ford was an early advent of the mobile service and seeing how it's really taken off and taken traction for them, that all too often in this business, if you don't stay up to date in the game, you're out of the game. So you always got to be constantly evolving.
So decision is made. This is going to be a fit for us. When time frame ish was that?
That would have been right around the first of the year that we decided that we were going to move forward with that and looking into the costs and vehicle options as well. This particular vehicle is fully outfitted to do everything from replacing your tires at a house all the way to the basic oil change. So there's different levels of vans that can do different services, but we decided that let's offer every service we can and see what we go from there to then tailor if we have to add or upfit different vehicles, to accommodate customers that we're going to do it that way. But I figured that the best way in conversations with dealer principals and the owners, where let's take that vehicle that can offer everything and then see where we can go from there at that point in time.
So how much all in is this little beauty behind us?
The basic vehicle itself, it's about $130,000 all in, $120,000, $130,000 right between there. But there's roughly about $70,000 in equipment inside of it.
Yeah.
So there are, and it's a fully electric vehicle too, so there are that initial cost with it, and then you're also looking at costs of adding a mechanic to it too. So, yeah.
So tell me how GM has supported you in this effort, either financially or with just kind of words of wisdom.
GM offered a lot of online training. There's various courses. There was even at Macomb Community College a one-day hands-on class with it. And they've kind of partnered, every dealership runs on a different DMS system, which is your digital management system as far as how the cars are scheduled and routed. And they kind of partnered with a company called Kirby, and we did early interviews and inquiries with Kirby. And they are a lot like you would have DoorDash or an Uber driver that, you know, books, manages, and sees the best routes throughout a day. And just going to some actual hands-on courses, meeting with these different companies and meeting with different supports through GM, you could see what resources were supplied and what resources are available.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does it help the service drive here at the bricks and mortar location, as far as if you've got someone out, there's, you know, 3 or 4, 5 customers who aren't coming in here, how does that help the flow?
It really hasn't affected our flow because typically we can be booked up to 2 weeks out just for oil changes alone. But then we've had recent customers that they lost the keys to their vehicle. That vehicle typically has to be towed to us. We went to them and they were able to drive their vehicle off right from their house where, you know, it was lost. So there are things that directly affect like just time frames and turnaround times that this has proven that it's just a great resource to have for the customers.
So when it came time to pick someone to be in the driver's seat for this, what's the thought process there? This person is going to be the face of the dealership out with the customer, which, you know, usually they're in the bay back here and they don't have a lot of interaction with the customer. How did you go about that process and pick the right person?
Well, you know, I think anything is we're a very, very loyal company-based company, and a lot of our people have been with us for a lot of years. You know, we don't, as much as I like to say, we don't have a revolving door here, and I think, you know, the owners and the general managers and the people that we have in place are a good proven point to that. And the individual that we have with this has been with us for over 13 years, and he wanted to do something different. And I think if we do something for so long, we want to try something different once in a while. And his biggest takeaway from the thing that he has is, as a mechanic, they never talk to the customer. And now he's able to go talk and interact with the customer because you only see the customer's vehicle. You never see the customer. And he's really good with people. He's friendly, and he's been in the business for a long time. And why not reward somebody who wants to do something different that's worked with our companies? So
you put them on salary as opposed to, you know.
Yeah, that was the other thing is typically technicians are paid flat rate, and people that are not versed on flat rate, they get paid by the work they do, and every job has a time allowed for it that they get paid on. And then now that they're going to be touching anywhere from 3 to 7 customers a day, you can't have them on a flat rate salary. You know, that they would just die for their wages. But we were able to, see what he's made in past years, and it even gives us freedom zone now too. Because if he's not out on the road, he can assist other technicians while he's still in the shop. Okay. So there's pros and cons to everything that you ever do. So yeah.
So getting back to my question earlier about when you start thinking about van 2, van 3, van 5. When will you, I know you're obviously every week you're looking at how it's performing. When will those discussions start in earnest? Is it kind of an end of year thing? Let's give it 6 months, let's give it a year, and then we're going to see. Or is it more just based on demand?
You know, I would say, well, firstly, it's going to be demand. But if, you know, the ideal thing is that this thing is going to be touching anywhere from 4 to 7 customers a day, but that's going to vary on what kind of work they're going to have done with the vehicle as well. But if we start filling that schedule for this for 5 days a week, it's not even be a question that we're going to add a second or a third van and let it just keep taking off from there.
GM, I think, is shifting now to the Equinoxes.
It is.
And so will that limit, I guess, to what you can do? Is it going to be more of a oil changes, those?
Yeah, it'll be more of like an oil changes, as simple as replacing a battery, maybe performing simple recalls that are reprogramming or updates to the vehicle. And even just with the size of the Equinox, it's going to be a one-to-one touch that they're going to have to return to the dealership, reload, and go back out to the customer. So that's going to be a limitation, where this one could go out and service anywhere from 4 to 7 cars a day without returning to the dealership. But even with adding vehicles and having a vehicle that's so equipped like this, we can tailor our appointments for the customers at that point in time.
The Equinox would be much cheaper to
way, yeah. The costs are every bit of a quarter of what this was, you know, to get with the incentives and different things to get into that. So
talking about service again, it's about convenience, right? We spoke about a little bit earlier before we got on camera here about just how customers are shifting, and that you have to kind of keep up.
Yeah, and COVID changed the world. I think everyone can agree to that, and there's been different things that have went on since there. And when we were locked in our houses, couldn't go anywhere, and we ordered everything to our door, people expect that service now. And there are still people that are intimidated still coming to the dealership. And the people that we have already touched and visited, once they've experienced this, and they didn't even know it was available, they said that if they can use this resource for anything in the future, that's what they're going to go to. So, and I think dealerships for different people can be intimidating,
And it's also just going to be a time,
a time thing too. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, with busy work schedules, kids going back to school, kids going back to college, vacations, there are limitations. And I think a lot of times too, we even see that where this has given us freedom to where our main shop's booked for like a week or two, but this is available. And people are like, hey, I forgot to get my oil change done. And we're like, well, we're booked out. We don't have an available opening in the next day or two, but we can come to you and do it. So it gave us versatility to fit bills that we never had before versus just a basic, brick and mortar scheduling system. So
now, is this free to customers, or is there a customer service charged for?
So the first service is always going to be free, just so the customer can experience it. But to go out to your house, it's no different. You had a refrigerator repairman or appliance repairman. It's $30 per visit. But then you can buy packages through GM, a 1 year, a 2 year, a 3 year, and a 4 year. And they start at $200 and go up to, I want to say $600 or $700. I have the paperwork on my desk. Yeah. But then the mobile service, it could be as basic as having a flat tire. We can come out to your house and fix your tire. If your washer solvent was empty, we could come to your house and fill your washer solvent. As basic as it gets, it's unlimited visits once you enroll in the program through GM on your vehicle.
It seems like it's going on so far so good.
Yeah.
Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for meeting you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
Yep.
Matt Kostrava, service manager at Bowman Chevrolet, spoke with our own Dan Shine. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own John Irwin and Urvash Kakaria for their reporting for today's podcast. We also had reporting from Nick Gibbs of our sibling publication, Automotive News Europe. You can get the latest news on GM's EV strategy, the Ford Geely partnership, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back over the weekend for our Weekend Drive edition of the show. Our own Michael Martinez and Larry Bellaquette break down some of the week's biggest stories, including why car buyers are paying thousands of dollars more for new vehicles from Carvana.
What I think it says, and what dealers ought to be paying attention to, is that people are willing to pay a little bit more against their own economic advantage to escape the dealership process.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.